Welcome to this episode of Threading Thoughts, where we'll be talking about financial digital payments in rural areas. India has a huge presence when it comes to fintech companies. The fintech industry actually witnessed a significant rise in its consumer base, not only in the metro cities but also in the rural areas. Most Tier 2 and Tier 3 regions have very less understanding of the digital world, and hence, campaigns to educate rural Indians about financial inclusion becomes a must. In order to reach the rural market, most fintech companies have tweaked their business models and made small innovations, as these rural areas are the growth engines for India. However, a major roadblock for rural India, which does not allow them to come under the umbrella of financial inclusion, is a lack of education about the digital financial services available. Hence, most fintech players now conduct training sessions to ease them into using their services. But the challenges remain. Anurag is a serial entrepreneur and innovator who has experience of over 25 years in the field of technology and R&D and has 5 issued patents to his credit. One of them being Share, which is now commonly used by billions of people across the globe on their mobile phones. He has been an entrepreneur for over a decade and has focused on automation of logistics, supply chain management, and fintech R&D. He co-founded FingPay 5 years back with a focus on serving the unserved and the underserved population by solving their banking needs. FingPay has an active BC network of 3.5 lakhs the last fiscal year. FingPay has processed transactions of over 30,000 crores INR and has served over 2 crore unique customers in rural India. FingPay is coming up with a self-banking model with their Neo app soon to supplement the existing assisted banking solutions they have. We're so glad, Anurag, that you could join us today for the Threading Thoughts podcast. It's amazing to have you here because we would really love to have an idea of what's going on in the fintech sector, at least, and especially in rural India. So I know you're an incredibly busy person. There are a lot of things and a lot of places you need to be at. So we're so glad you were able to join us today.
Thank you so much, Mrizla, for inviting. It's a privilege. It's an honor to be talking to you on this. And let me know, we can talk anytime.
Thank you so much. I mean, definitely the pleasure is ours. But let me start off by asking, what is the penetration of banking systems in rural areas? What are the challenges? If you could sort of give us a brief background, that would help us understand much better.
Banking in India has been, it's pretty good. But when it comes to rural India, the penetration is very, very low. So on an average, in India, the banking penetration is, there are about one bank branch for every 37,000 Indians. So that's pretty low, right?
True.
And what we need to look at is how is the rural market getting addressed, and why are these challenges there? So from a bank's perspective, opening up a branch in rural India is financially not feasible. The ROI is not there.
Right.
The operations are very expensive. You need to set up a branch, you need to have a building, you need to have safe safe rooms, you need to have staff, you need to have so much of infrastructure.
The infrastructure, correct.
Yes. And then the population is very small, and their savings or the minimum account balance that they will be maintaining is very little, and the profitability for the banks is not much, and that is one of the primary reasons why there is very little penetration in the rural India. And also there are certain branches, but that has been because of the mandate by the government that you need to have at least so many branches in the rural India,
right?
So ratio which they have to meet. And but still the 37,000 people for one bank branch says it all.
It's really not much, is it?
Yes.
But there are these challenges as well, right? It's not just easy going and setting it up, as you mentioned, infrastructure, but it's also perhaps a mindset issue. Would that also be contributing?
Yeah, that is also true to some extent, because people are used to saving in their pots, and then they would probably put them under the ground. The trust factor is pretty big, right? And if you look at the banks, the people come in and go, there are transfers that happen. So by the time the population gets trust on the branch staff is already transferred, and not everybody is same, right? So so the trust factor also matters to some extent.
And also perhaps the access to ready cash, right? If I'm going to store it in an earthen pot in my house, I have immediate access to it. That again comes back to this transportation infrastructure, ease of reaching a branch. All those I think play a huge role, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, so talking about these then, how can you empower local private partnerships, right, to help fill these voids that we see? Because people on the ground make a very different decision than people from outside coming in. So what are your thoughts on it?
Right. So the RBI has allowed BCs, right, the correspondent bankers, to allow banking for population, and it actually helps them a lot. So if you look at the citizens, they have to do the banking, they have to travel to a different village, and sometimes what happens is they end up spending half a day or one day to do their basic banking. So if somebody is trying to withdraw 2,000 rupees, they end up spending 200 rupees on the transportation, and they lose one day's wage, that another 300-400 rupees. So overall, the cost of withdrawing 2,000 rupees from a bank branch is very, very high. And yeah, so instead of that, if there is a neighborhood kirana shop or a mobile recharge shop, so they can go to that particular shop. This is a person they have been knowing for several years, and this person is not going away anywhere, and they already have a business. And if this person allows them to transact with their bank account, and they're able to withdraw the 2,000 rupees seamlessly, it makes a lot of sense, right? And they can do that anytime. If you have to go to a bank branch, there are timings, right? The bank branch operates only between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that also adds a lot of constraints. Whereas this shop nearby you is available from morning 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So the flexibility, the trust factor, the ease, all these things contribute a lot to the BC network. And it actually creates a win-win situation, right? The BC is already running his own business, and this is an additional revenue for them, and it helps the customer. So customer is saving money, customer is saving time. BC is getting additional revenue for the transactions they're doing. They also get additional footfalls. Somebody wants to do a banking transaction, they go to that particular BC store. And because they are there, they may even buy something else, right?
True. They land up seeing something. Yeah.
Right. So increasing footfalls, upsell, cross-sell, all these things are creating a win-win-win situation. And banks save a lot of money in terms of saving on their branch cost, ATM cost, and the BCs transacting. So it's kind of a pretty good model.
Absolutely. So it's almost like reaching into their local ecosystem, right? And making sure that empowering something that's already present. So as you correctly mentioned, I think it's easy for them because they can always talk to that person and say, this is an emergency, I need to do my banking right now. That is not something that you can do in a system, right? You need to go with their timings. So that is a bit of an issue. And I also understand your concept of a trust factor, because these people interact on a daily basis. So they sort of know that their money is safe, right? Accessible and safe, and that's a lovely ecosystem to develop as well. But, talking about ecosystems, there's this perhaps more so in the COVID times that we have seen, but generally as well, with this increased migration of very technologically cognizant, people. So they're moving from these urban to rural centers. So what are some of the new initiatives that can be broached to tap this market?
See, there are, so if you look at it this way, people are doing basic banking. You are checking your bank balance, you are withdrawing money from your account, you are depositing some money into your account, right? So those things are already available. You can also take a mini statement, like, okay, what are the last
Right.
10 transactions, etc. Right. Additionally to that, like, we have been coming up with, like, several new products, like, financial products, like low cost insurance. So for as cheap as, like, 49 rupees, we are able to sell a vector-borne disease insurance to these people, right, the citizens. And because of the geography they are living in, like, these are very common diseases. And then if you're getting insurance for 49 rupees, like, that's pretty
It's
decent.
very good. Yeah.
And yeah. And additionally, like, some of these people have their own business, and some of them, like, the business could be a shop, or, like, a trading business or an agriculture business. And sometimes they need a, like, short-term loan, working capital loan. And that could be for as short as, like, 2 days, 1 week or so, right? And if you need that kind of a loan for a very short duration, a small amount, the avenues are not many. And even if you get an avenue, like, the interest rate, the processing fee is huge.
Yeah.
And we are, like, working on, like, providing them short-term working capital loan at very reasonable prices, right? And we are also, like, looking at what they can do, like, so most of the people have, like, needs to save for their future. And in India, the common two requirements are, like, education and like, money for marriage.
Marriage.
So
Yes.
these are kind of goal-based savings, right? So we are coming up with a product wherein, like, the people can have a goal-based savings, and we are offering them, like, education based savings, or, like, marriage-based savings in the form of fixed deposit or a recurring deposit, or even, like, gold savings for that matter.
Right.
Because people trust a lot on the gold, so you can actually do something like an SIP for with gold.
No, but that's very fascinating, right? I mean, these innovations. And what more do you think is happening?
Yeah, so eventually, like, see, these are, like, very conservative products. And once people get trust, and, like, they have confidence, and we can, like, start saving more, like, start introducing more products, like, mutual funds, which are a little more riskier. But
Right.
hopefully, like, the penetration for such products will improve.
Absolutely. And the fact that people who understand technology better and who are going into these areas would also spread the education and the digital literacy, right, of these
Absolutely.
rural India as well. So the long-term effects could also be not only new products, but greater penetration into these markets that might have been a little more difficult earlier, right? And multiple outlets. For example, instead of having one Kirana store, you might have 3 Kirana stores who are now very tech savvy. Has that happened? I mean, are you seeing that trend at all, or is it still too early?
Right, we are seeing the trend, right? Like, so what we can see is today predominantly it's an assisted model of banking. So they go to a store, and, like, they're doing these transactions, and like, we have already seen a lot of adoption with some of our products, wherein, like, they have taken loans from MFIs or NBFCs, and earlier, like, they were repaying the EMI only through cash. And we have introduced, like, digital payment channels, wherein they can use their Aadhaar based accounts and make a payment digitally. So if they don't even have the cash to make the payment for that EMI at that time, they don't have to get penalized, they don't have to pay additional interest. They can use the, like, Aadhaar based transaction and make a payment to their EMI. So those kind of innovations have actually, like, made a huge impact on the customers' life, as well as on the MFIs and NBFCs, because they don't need to, like, send their agent again and again to, like, do the collection.
Correct.
And what we are coming up with is, like, the flexibility for these customers to go and make a payment through our BC network. And for that, we need to have a larger network. And we are having, like, multiple BCs in any geography, so that you have a choice. So you could, like, find a BC who's, like, in your neighborhood, or who's on your way to work, or, like, so it's your choice, but yes, the BC network is growing, and we're having, like, multiple points. And also the education literacy levels of how to use these products is like, helping them like, get more transparency
Right.
into their like, financial literacy.
Yeah. I'm very keen to understand what were your learnings when you initially, broke into the market, which must have been a very, very difficult and, uphill task. And what are your learnings now? Because, there is a growth curve and you're on the other part of the growth curve. So, there have been changes, there have been understandings, there have been learnings. So given that we've talked about so much, I just want to see what has been your learning initial stages versus now. And, what are the challenges that you faced earlier, but what do you think are the challenges you face now?
Right. So see, as any ecosystem or any system, right, they will have that will have some teething trouble. So even these things had their own set of problems. But like, we studied the problems, and like, there were solutions, and then like, there was adoption, there was training, and today, like, it's a lot more stable. Like, initially, the kind of challenges that we had were the biometric mismatch, and people were like, using their fingerprint. And then sometimes, like, what happens is your fingers are dirty, like, they're not clean, or your fingerprint reader doesn't, like, it has some previous prints. So we kind of trained all the VCs to clean the fingerprint reader.
In fact, even moisture disrupts your
Yes.
fingerprint quite a bit. I mean, this was a revelation to me as well when I used it somewhere over here. So, yeah.
Right. So when we were looking at these issues with like a fingerprint reader, we looked at like, what are the alternatives for biometric? Then like, we built a system which would authenticate the user through the iris. In fact, like, in the world, we did the first transaction, which was like, you're actually making a payment through the iris authentication.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so iris is like, basically you need to have an iris scanner, and that would be a very expensive like, sensor, and financially it's not very feasible. So now, like, there's a face authentication that you can use, and then you could make a payment. And we have done like, several hundreds of such transactions using face authentication as a trial, and hopefully, like, commercially it could be very commercially it would be available very soon. So these are some of the learnings based on the biometric authentication. Apart from that, like, there were transactions that were like, getting stuck. So it's like, you make a payment, and then the payment is done from your account, but like, it has not been paid to the merchant. So like,
right.
In such a situation, you feel frustrated, you lose hope, you like, you stop using that kind of a system, whether it's a credit card or a payment gateway or whatever. And we had seen a lot of such transactions that were like, partially successful. Like, the transaction was not there. That kind of triggered a lot of frustration, despair in the customers' minds. But we like, we fixed those issues as well. Like, there was a lot of support from NPCI and the other banking system, wherein we did things like reversal of the transaction, three-way reconciliation. So all these systems together have increased the trust in customers' mind, wherein like, today the customer can do a transaction without any fear that, like, even if it is partially successful, partially failed, they know their money is safe. It will come back into their accounts within.
And all these remedial measures, right? So all the remedial measures are in place. So they know that if something goes wrong, that's okay. There is some remedy that comes out of it.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. And the latest challenges that you think, let me rephrase that, not just the challenges now, in future, what are some of the challenges you think you will face?
See, in future, few things, right? Like, the trust factor would continue, I think, right? So the trust keeps shifting from one place to another. So we need to make sure, like, you address the trust factor at one point doesn't necessarily mean you can just take it for granted.
True.
Right? And then the other things are like, adoption. So it takes time for like, people to adopt. So there's something new, there will be resistance, and people like, look at it as like, hey, is it safe? Is it good for me? Should I do this? So I think, like, hopefully we are trying to bring in some viral effect by like, bringing in some influencers regionally and telling them like, hey, this is safe. I have done this. It's very similar to like, the COVID vaccine, right? Initially, people were having a lot of resistance or fear Now, like, there's a mad rush, like, we are short on organization, right?
Correct.
Similar fear is there for like any new product. So that's one thing. Second thing is like, the security aspects or the frauds, right? It's a cat and mouse game, right? So you make your systems better, like, people will find a way to like, figure out how to work around. So it's a cat and mouse game, so it will be on all the time, right? So that's another challenge. The third challenge is like, you need to make it really competitive. Like, so if you look at today, the market is full of a lot of products, but most of them are like, addressing the urban population or the Gen Z millennials.
Right.
But
Right.
we are
Exactly.
serving the rural population, unserved, underserved segment. And that, like, that is because it's a challenging market. Firstly, like, you need to go to those geographies, then you need to educate them, they need to build that trust, and then they're having lesser risk appetite compared to the millennial population, right? So how do you deal with those challenges, right? It's going to be a continuous thing, right? It's not going to
Absolutely.
be over with one product.
No, but it's interesting because as
And then you need to give them competitive rates.
absolutely, absolutely, the competitive rates, and as more players come into the system, there's given that the initial understanding is already set. They know the challenges, so you're also competing with them. But that's interesting because you will always face new challenges, right? I mean, COVID was a completely new black swan event. None of us really understood initially. At least the intensity of it was not understood, I guess. But now that we understand, we realize that the rural centers started becoming these hotbeds of activity because the people still had not been affected, at least in the first wave, and they were very active business wise, anything wise, right? Unless the urban centers were completely shut down. So there was this complete strange mismatch that happened. But as you correctly said, I think at every point of time, this trust is an issue that will always come up. Staying ahead of the game, and securing whatever you're doing. I think these are things that you'll constantly be working on no matter what. But other than that, the fact that people are getting more comfortable and more digital literate should help these services to keep their space in the rural areas. And hopefully everybody else will also be able to come under that umbrella, because it's important we're sort of integrated nationally rather than more urban versus rural areas, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think that will make a huge difference. And I can only thank you so much for taking time off and patiently explaining all of this, because I do know that this is just so much of work and effort that goes into it every single day to make sure that it's working in a very, very remote part of India. So I can only thank you, Anurag, for just quickly coming and saying I'll spend time and explaining so much, because it was really, really interesting to hear the perspectives and also the honest challenges and the fact that, this is what we struggled with is not many things people talk about. So I can only thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tizla.